The draft lottery is tonight. And what if the Sharks pick third?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be talking about what happens if the Sharks pick third in the draft. So we're going to be looking at why it's not the end of the world. We can calm down, talk about kind of the candidates I like in that area. Or do you try to trade out of the pick? So before we get to all that, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So we do know tonight is at 4 p.m. Pacific time. The draft lottery will happen. So all the waiting and for this moment, and we'll finally know where the Sharks actually pick. Unlike last year, right, where I think there was much more anxiety around trying to land Macklin and Celebrini, which the Sharks successfully did. And I think if I recall correctly, Shang Peng reported the Sharks actually won the draft lottery like 3 times in a row. But this year it's a different feeling, right? Especially because at the top of the class, right, there isn't that Macklin Celebrini, there isn't that, Gavin McKenna in next year's draft class, there isn't that Connor Bedard, right? It's a much kind of different draft class. I think that's okay, right? Not every draft class is the same, and each one is beautiful in its own special little way, right? But this one, if the Sharks don't get the first overall pick, it's like you're still walking away with a great player, right? And even the first overall pick, there's debate about who it should be. And right in my personal board, I think it's Matthew Schaefer. It's pretty clear cut for me, like looking at it from a specific Sharks needs. He fills a lot of the needs. And you always want to go best player available. But in this situation, Matthew Schaefer and best player available and the Sharks needs fit with what they need, right? So, yes, Schaefer's the best player, I think, in the draft. And then Michael Misa is a close number 2. So, right, if you don't get number 1, you get number 2, you're walking away with one of those players. Assuming, right, even if it's Chicago that moves up, the hope is if anybody wins the lottery, it's Chicago moves up, because gut feeling says they probably lean towards Michael Misa, and then you get the guy you want anyway. That's what you're hoping for if you don't get number 1. But regardless, if anybody else in the top 11 move up, it's not the end of the world, because then, or if you lose it, whoever, you're still going to walk away with a good player between Schaefer or Misa. And even if the worst case scenario, right, you move down 2 spots, there's still a lot of great players. It's not like you're going to walk away with some third line scrub. So it's a good position to be in if you're a Sharks fan, because right, you're not missing out on the this beautiful prize. It's not like the Ducks, right, who they lost, if you recall, they lost the Connor Bedard draft, right? And Leo Carlson is turning into a very fine NHL player, but right, wouldn't you want to have Connor Bedard over Leo Carlson? I mean, I would. I like Leo Carlson, but Connor Bedard is just a different dude. But you're still in a very, very good position to get a top flight player in this year's class. So let's actually look at kind of the odds, the standings, and just as a nice, gentle reminder for everybody. So according to our good friends over at Tankathon, the top 16 teams can technically win the draft. Only the teams 1 through 11 are eligible to move up to the number 1 spot. So if Detroit, Columbus, Utah, Vancouver, and the Calgary pick at number 16, all those picks there, if they were to win the lottery, they can only move up 10 spots. And like the Calgary pick, for example, at 16, it's like a 0.5% chance, but they can move. If they were to quote unquote win the lottery, they would move up to the 6th pick and everybody else would drop down. So, but for the Sharks, right, they have the best odds to win the number 1 overall pick, 25% chance that they win the number 1 overall pick. The furthest that they can, of course, drop down is number 3. Chicago as second best at 13.5, Nashville 11.5, Philly at 9.5, Boston at 8.5%, Seattle 7.5, Buffalo at 6.5, Anaheim at 6, Pittsburgh at 5, the Islanders at 3.5, and then the Rangers at 3%. So those are all the odds. And if you're looking at Tankathon, you see the odds, like the Sharks odds are at 18.5%. The number 1 overall odds are at 25.5%. Again, that's that. If you combine the odds of the Red Wings, Blue Jackets, Utah, the Canucks, and then the Calgary Flames pick, those odds together, plus the Sharks' own odds at 18.5, gives you the 25.5%. So that's why there's a difference, because if one of those teams in the, one of those teams in the teens wins the lottery, quote unquote, the Sharks are still going to have the number 1 overall pick because they just can't jump up high enough to win it. So another thing to keep in mind, right? If you are put on the tanking hat for one more year for Gavin McKenna, the Sharks, there is a rule where in 5 years, you can only move up twice. The Blackhawks moved up in the Connor Bedard. Last year, the Sharks, even though they won the lottery, they did not move up. So they still have 2 move-ups, right? This year, they can't move up. You have the best odds. So the Sharks do have 2 still move-ups no matter what. If you really are a sicko, you're kind of rooting for the Blackhawks to win it, because that knocks them out of the move-up position for Gavin McKenna. They could still get to the number 1 overall pick if they are the absolute worst team in the NHL next year. But, and then again, it also puts you in we're probably still getting Matthew Schaefer. If you're on the Matthew Schaefer bandwagon like myself, that's probably the results you're kind of rooting for if you're a sicko. Is that the Blackhawks win the draft lottery this year. It makes it harder for them to get Gavin McKenna, because Gavin McKenna and Connor Bedard together would be pretty ridiculous. Then you hope that the Blackhawks, who've drafted defensemen in 2 of the past 3 years with top 10 picks, lean towards Michael Misa to give themselves a running partner to pair with Connor Bedard, just like the Sharks have, right, with Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith, 2 top 4 picks in their respective draft years. And we've seen kind of what the Sharks are building with those 2 young players. So I think before we get into kind of the number 3, what if worst case scenario with the Sharks pick number 3, I think you just going into this draft, it's just much different, right? Because things can still really work out in the Sharks' favor, even if they don't get the number 1 overall pick. And, even if, for example, like Nashville jumps up to number 1 and they pick Schaefer, and, if Chicago, if Nashville jumps up to number 1, or if 2 teams jump over the Sharks, right, Nashville and whomever else, right, Chicago or whatever, like if they jump the Sharks, you're still going to be in a really good position to pick a player at number 3. So we'll look at some of the candidates for who the Sharks should pick at number 3. Why I feel like it's Porter Martone versus the field, especially what the Sharks are looking for. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. You ever look at your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, or if you're like me, just buying snacks for your children? They don't stop eating. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check all your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track both shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. And if you have not experienced NHL playoff games in person, you need to check it out. It's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as the puck drop gets closer. With last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. I've used Game Time to go see Sharks tickets. I've used Game Time to go grab Barracuda tickets, Warriors, whatever it is. Game Time is the way to go. Or concerts, comedy, theater, they've got you covered there as well. The app even shows you panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, before we get to Martone versus the field, I do, of course, want to thank you guys for making a Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe as we're continuing to look at free agency. Again, the Sharks have $1 bajillion to spend this offseason. They got to spend it on somebody. Get you covered with the draft. We have more draft profiles. It looks like Wednesday is going to be kind of the draft profile day. It's how the calendar is kind of shaking out. So we'll have another set of profiles for you on Wednesday. Plenty of great stuff as busy summer for Mike Greer and company. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Okay, so what happens? Worst case scenario, right? Sharks get jumped twice, end up in the 3 slot. Just a reminder, if you end up in the 3 slot, you're still that doesn't change the rest of your rounds of your picks. The Sharks will be picking the first pick of each of the following round. Like the Sharks have the 33rd pick, etc. Like it does not change that part. So just keep that in mind. But what happens if, again, the Sharks worst case scenario tonight, they drop 2 spots? I think for the San Jose and what they're the vision that Mike Greer is building. For me, I believe Porter Martone is the dude who Greer, I think, would be most interested in drafting, right? And watching the Barracuda in their playoffs, and you see just the size and the skill, and like Porter Martone is kind of, I think, the guy that Mike Greer would covet the most, right? Looking at who's there, right? And kind of the consolidated rankings on elite prospects. They have James Higgins at number 3. They have Porter Martone at number 4. Anton Frundell at number 5. Roger McQueen at number 6. Victor Eklund at number 7. So those guys are kind of in that next group there. Roger McQueen is a big old red flag no for me. And I get it. I see it. He's 6'5". He's very skilled. Back issues worry me, right? And like that guy, it does worry me with him just because of the injuries, right? I know he came back from it, but back injuries worry me, especially for a dude who's 6'5". I'll take the guy who broke his collarbone in Schaefer. Yes, you don't want player to get hurt, but you feel like a collarbone isn't going to be a lingering issue. The 18-year-old kid with back issues, massive red flag to me. somebody's going to talk themselves into it, and it's the Boston Bruins, who just like big dudes. But looking at those guys and kind of what the Sharks are building, right? And you see what, even some of the picks that the Sharks have made, right? Quint Musty, 6'2", 200 pounds, highly skilled player. Kasper Holttunen, 6'3", right? 200 pounds. Skilled player, has a role, right? I'm going to forecheck, I'm going to hit dudes, and I'm going to crush rockets. That is what Kasper Holttunen's role is. Porter Martone, just a little, Igor Chernyshov, sorry, I forgot him, 6'2", can play whatever you need Chernyshov to play. You need him to play grindy, dirty minutes. Cool, I can do that. You need him to score a bunch of points against children in the OHL. I could do that too. Martone's just kind of a different dude while still in that same vein of just bigger guys, right? So Porter Martone, we did his profile already. So 6'3", 207 pounds, a little bit older of the prospects. He's 18. He'll turn 19 in October. So one thing with that, you don't have to worry about the weird going back for that extra OHL season because of his age. He's a guy who can play one more season in the OHL and then go straight to the Barracuda the following season. He's not going to be like Kasper or Quentin Musty, where it's like, or the Sam Dickinson proposition of like, what do you do with this guy kind of between that OHL, AHL season? Porter Martone can go back and can play in the AHL after this next season. So for a guy who's like played plenty of OHL games. So, but he provides that power forward type of player that the Sharks just don't have in their prospect pool. I'm bigger, stronger, faster, but combines that skill that the Sharks do need, right? And adds a little bit of grit. Not like, I know Brock Otten kind of mentioned, like he brought up the Kachucks when talking about Porter Martone. I think that's like the super high level of Porter Martone. I don't know if he gets there, right? And that's what he said, right? That's the hope, is that he eventually turns into that. But I do think it's kind of seeing what Mike Grier likes to draft, seeing how he likes to build teams now that we're starting to get a bigger sample size of what Grier likes to do. I feel like it would be Martone versus the rest at number 3. Hagens, right, would really help to kind of solve that what happens if Will Smith isn't a center debate, because he could be your second line center. And I mean, he had a fine season at Boston College this year. He had 37 games, 11 goals, 26 assists, 37 points. Like that, 37 points in 37 games as a draft eligible player. Like he hasn't even been drafted yet. That's a fine season, but I think it still kind of felt you a little disappointed, especially kind of compared to what Will Smith did, right? And again, Will Smith, a year older when he got drafted, but and kind of went through his freshman season. But Hagens, I think, would give you that like 200-foot two-way center behind Macklin Celebrini. Not the biggest guy, 5'11", 176 pounds, but I think is definitely worth the conversation there. I think the wild card among the group, though, is Anton Frundell. He's had a wonderful end to the season here with their playoff run here. And, he's 6 foot, 196 pounds. So he is kind of that Macklin Celebrini style, where little bit bigger, thicker guy, for even though he's not the biggest height. And he's 17. He doesn't turn 18 until May, or his birthday's here in a couple days. So he'll turn 18 here in a couple days. But again, that two-way center, super smart type of player, and his stock has really risen over, kind of during the playoffs here, where he had 3 goals, 4 assists for 7 points during this kind of playoff run, as Djurgårdens made it to the SHL, kind of got promoted. He had 25 points in 29 games this season in the Hockeyallsvenskan. Has dealt with some injuries, but if it's not Martone, I wonder how hard the Sharks think about him, Anton Frundell, and kind of make the case for, because we know center is the most valuable. If you're worried about Smith, we'll see with Smith, right? It does seem like Mike Grier wants Smith to be a center, right? They drafted him to be a center. He's probably they're at least going to try him at center, but just giving yourself options and more flexibility in case Smith doesn't work out. And the worst case scenario is you move somebody else to, like, you move Frondell to winger, gives you options. But I do like, he's kind of the wild card. And could it be a Leo Carlson type of, right? Nobody expected Leo Carlson to go number 2 that draft. It was always going to, Fantilli was kind of the number 2 guy. And then Fantilli goes number 3 and Leo Carlson goes number 2. So who knows? But I do think, like, that's the other guy I would probably, if I had to kind of rank them, I think it's Martone. Then I kind of think it's Frondell. And then I think it's Higgins, and then Victor Eklund. Like, Victor Eklund is a Mike Grier type of player, but it's might be a little bit too rich at number 3. So we're gonna discuss potentially trading out and why I get it, but I just don't see it happening. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talents across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you'll get multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business effectively. Use Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, guys, and when you are done with this episode, you definitely need to go check out the Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So, worst case scenario, Sharks get number 3. Like, if the Sharks get one of the top 2 picks, like, you stick and pick, because you're getting Misa or you're getting Schaefer, right? Stick and pick. Number 3, do you trade out? And let me preface this by saying it never happens, right? Every year, the Sharks should trade down. You should try to accumulate more draft picks, et cetera, et cetera. It never happens, bro. Like, picks 1 through 10, nobody ever trades out of those picks, because having a player that is on an ELC and cost controlled for the next bajillion years is extremely valuable to a franchise, right? And yes, the Sharks need to add NHL caliber players, but which team is going to be like, hey, I have this extra, like, number 1 defenseman, or I have this extra, like, first line center. Would you like to trade this player that I have for your mystery box that we have no idea what's going to be? No team is doing that. Like, everyone talk like, you should trade for this guy. Like, why would that team trade their number 1 defenseman, or their, like, top tier defenseman, or their, like, top line or top 6 forward for a player who's not even going to play in the NHL? Like, I do not foresee any player in this draft playing the NHL next year. And if I had to pick one, it might be Misa, but I think he's going to college next year, and I think that's the best route for him. Like, there's just nobody in the draft I really think is ready to jump in the NHL next year. So let's start with that. 2, trading down. Like, the thing is, you're going to if you were to trade down, like, looking at teams who have multiple first round picks. Okay, you have, let's see, you got Chicago, which is have their pick, and then they don't have a pick again until the Toronto pick, which is probably going to be pick like 24 through 32. And again, we've talked about this draft class. Kind of after 15, it really falls off. Okay. All right. Philly, they have their pick at number 4. They also have Edmonton and Colorado's pick. And Colorado's, again, those picks are probably going to be in the 20 through 25 range. Nashville has their pick. Then they have the Vegas pick, which was the Sharks pick. And they have Tampa's pick. So, again, late first round picks. So, yes, you are moving down a couple spots and you're gaining more assets. But, like, again, the Sharks have tons of picks, right? You already have your another second round or another first round pick this year. You have 2 second round picks this year. You have 2 first round picks next year. You have 2 second round picks next year. Like, the Sharks don't need more draft pick. They have plenty of draft picks, right? And maybe you can cobble them together and trade back up type of thing, which, okay. But, like, I just don't see it. And no team is trading their 2026 pick, right? Because the 2026 draft is looking very much like the 2023 draft, where we're a year out from it, but right, you have a very special talent at the top end in Gavin McKenna, and you have a lot of really awesome players right below him. Like, the next year's draft class is going to be super fun. So teams aren't going to be like, if you don't think like you're going to be a championship type of team, you're not trading that 2026 pick. Like Edmonton, we know Edmonton's going to be good next year. They don't care. Like the late first round picks to them, they don't care, right? And getting Jake Wallman, like that, they needed Mackenzie Blackwood. But anyway, I guess they're still playing and Mackenzie Blackwood isn't. But conversation for a different day and a different show. I get it, but I get the like trying to trade and maybe gather more assets, but at some point you got to pick. And in what's a really weird draft class, I'd rather just stick at number 3 and take Porter Martone or take, Anton Frundell or take whomever, James Hagan, whatever it is, right? I don't think the trade down to get another late round first, right? That again, I don't even think the Sharks are going to want to pick with their late round first. I think they're going to try to trade that for a player. Maybe that's part of it, right? You trade down to gather some more assets, so you can turn around and package and trade somebody else. Maybe, okay, if you can talk me into that, that's fine. But that's just so many steps. So I don't think trading down or trading out of the number 3 pick, while it would make sense, you can see the path to it being a successful move. I just think there's so many elements of this has to go right, this has to go right, this has to go right for it to happen. And you have to teams want to have to come up, right? And I don't know if teams are chomping at the bit to trade up to draft Higgins or Martone or Anton Frundell or whomever there, right? Where, again, this draft is so wide open. And we heard from Mike Greer himself, right? Our top 5 draft board is going to look much different than everybody else. And you go to Nashville, their top 5 is probably going to look different than the Sharks and there's not a consensus. So while yes, maybe trading down would make sense, I don't think this is the season this is the draft where we see it. And just historically, right? We don't see teams trade top 10 picks. It's pick number 10, 11, like pick number 11 for some reason, like trade out. That's the trade out pick, right? And we saw the Sharks do it a couple years ago with the Phil Beested pick. Trade out, great move by them. I don't see. I would rather just have Martone on an ELC plus his RFA years for the next couple seasons. That makes too much sense to me than to try to kind of maybe we can find somebody. And it's not like the Sharks are trying to win trying to make the playoffs right next year. Like realistically, this team is going to the goal is like NHL 500 next year, which would be a huge jump for the Sharks. It's a tough world for me to trade out of the top 3 picks. So we'll know more really soon what the Sharks are intended to do. So we'll be back after the draft lottery to react to wherever the Sharks are, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. We'll look at, of course, kind of what that means for the Sharks with their picks, start the Schaefer, Misa, Martone, whomever else debate here. So plenty of great stuff here coming out Locked On Sharks. Make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until tomorrow, best of luck, guys. Bye, friends.